Hello everyone, welcome back to Betrayed. Thank you for joining us today. We have a new story to share with you, so let's begin. It all started with a gut feeling, it always does, doesn't it? Something small and hard to notice at first. A slight change in her tone, a strange gentleness in her voice when she'd say, "I'm going out for lunch with a friend." The kind of softness you only recognize if you've heard the sharpness before. The sharpness that years of love and commitment were supposed to smooth away. Laura and I had been married for 8 years. 8 years of shared morning coffees, whispered dreams, and the quiet understanding that comes from deeply knowing someone. I believed our bond was strong. Yes, we had our arguments, but who doesn't? I thought it was just the natural ups and downs of married life. That was before the late-night message I accidentally saw on her phone, which was lying beside me on the couch. Can't stop thinking about today. The message came from an unknown number. When I asked her about it, she gave a nervous laugh and said, "It's nothing, just a group chat. You know how girls are." I nodded and didn't ask more. But that night, lying in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, I knew something wasn't right. Something was deeply, terribly wrong. Weeks passed, and her lunch outings became more frequent. Her excuses became more vague. That's when I decided to act. I'm not proud of it, but one afternoon when she left her phone unattended, I went through it. The messages I found weren't just flirty, they were explicit. Her friend was someone named Eric. And from the way they talked, their so-called lunch meetings were much more than just sandwiches and casual conversation. A wave of sickness and anger hit me, followed by deep embarrassment. My wife, my Laura, was having an affair. And this wasn't just about physical attraction. Their messages were full of emotional closeness, the kind of deep connection we once shared. The kind I thought was still ours. For a week, I kept the truth to myself. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her? Should I pack my bags and leave? Should I ask her why? I did none of those things. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I made a plan, carefully and deliberately. I started digging. After spending some time online, I discovered that Eric was one of Laura's colleagues, a sales rep she had worked with on a project. He was married, too. I found his wife, Christine, on Facebook. She was a small, kind-looking woman with gentle eyes and 2 little kids under 5. My heart broke for her. But my sympathy didn't stop me. The plan came together faster than I expected. First, I hired a private investigator, a tough man named Frank, who looked like he didn't mess around. Frank's photos confirmed everything. He captured images of Laura and Eric leaving a hotel together, brushing against each other, smiling and laughing. He even took a photo of them kissing in her car. Solid, undeniable proof. Next, I reached out to Christine. My message was simple. "Hi Christine, this is difficult to share, but I believe your husband Eric is having an affair with my wife Laura. I've attached photos. I'm sorry you had to hear this from me." Her reply came an hour later. Just one sentence. "Thank you for telling me." The wheels were now in motion, and I knew I couldn't stop what would come next. But I had one more step to take. I wanted Laura to see what her betrayal had caused, to face the results of her choices. So I invited her to lunch. "Let's go on a date," I said, smiling as if everything was fine. "Just the 2 of us. It's been a while." She looked surprised, maybe even happy. Perhaps she thought I was trying to reconnect, that I had no idea what was really happening. But she didn't know. This was the calm before the storm. On the day of the lunch, I set the table carefully. A crisp white tablecloth, our best silverware, and 2 glasses of wine. It looked like an effort to revive romance. But it wasn't. It was a stage. And the centerpiece wasn't flowers. It was a manila envelope full of every piece of evidence Frank had collected. Laura walked in smiling, her cheeks still glowing from her supposed lunch outing. She froze when she saw the setup. Her eyes went from the envelope to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I simply motioned for her to sit. Reluctantly, she sat down, her smile fading. I slid the envelope across the table. "Open it," I said. She hesitated, then opened it. Her jaw clenched as she looked through the photos and text message printouts. I can explain, she stuttered, but her voice was weak. Explain? I replied, leaning back in my chair. My voice calm but sharp. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you've been sneaking around with a married man? That you've treated our marriage like it meant nothing? Tears filled her eyes. It's not like that, she whispered. Then what is it, Laura? I asked firmly, my voice rising. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been living a double life, enjoying both comfort and lies. She broke down in tears, sobbing and repeating empty apologies that meant nothing. I let her cry. I let her sit in the mess she had created. When she finally looked up at me, her face stained with tears, I delivered the next blow. I've spoken to Christine, I said calmly. Her eyes widened in shock. You what? She gasped. She knows everything just like I do. You haven't just destroyed one home, Laura. You've ruined two families. Congratulations. Right then, there was a knock at the door. Laura turned, startled, her face full of fear and confusion. I stood and opened it. Christine walked in, her face calm, but her eyes burning with fury. And behind her was Eric. Laura went pale. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, is closure. What followed was intense. Christine let out years of bottled-up pain and anger at Eric, who stood there speechless and stumbling over his words. Laura tried to step in, but Christine turned to her like a storm. Don't you dare try to defend this, she snapped. You're selfish. You're dishonest. The words she used were too harsh to repeat politely. Finally, Eric tried to explain himself, talking about how he felt unappreciated at home. I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, sharp laugh. Unappreciated, I said. You have two beautiful children and a wife who would do anything for you. And this is how you show your gratitude. By the end, emotions were running high. Laura and Eric looked like empty versions of the people they used to be. Christine and I shared a glance, a silent understanding between two people who had endured betrayal and still stood strong. The consequences came quickly. Laura packed her things and left that very night. I filed for divorce the next day.
Christine did the same.
Eric lost his job after Christine sent the evidence to his workplace. Laura's reputation collapsed as the truth spread among our friends and family. They had no one to blame but themselves. As for me, I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I cried alone, and mornings when even getting out of bed felt like a battle. But with time, the rage faded, replaced by a steady, quiet determination to start again. I began therapy. I started running. I reconnected with old friends. A year later, I feel better than I have in years. I've learned to value myself, to expect honesty and respect from the people I allow into my life. As for Laura and Eric, last I heard, their relationship didn't survive the weight of their guilt. Revenge might not always be healthy, but sometimes it gives us the strength to reclaim our power. And reclaim it I did.